That was way worse. That was terrible.
I know what you're going for.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Mega Man. What's going on? This is Zach.
And this is Dave.
And this is the Franchise Unpacked podcast. We are outrageously excited for today's episode.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I've been getting myself amped for this literally since we hit record on the previous episode for multiple reasons. One is because today we are covering one of my all-time favorite franchises, Mega Man. And two, because we have our very first guest ever, unless you count Will in the background in the first episode.
Our nearly silent co-host.
Yeah, our nearly silent co-host. But but this is really our first official guest ever on the show, and he's actually phoning into us from LA. Matt Jacobs.
Hey guys, how you doing?
What is going on, Matt?
Hey Matt, there you are.
Nothing much, just dealing with this polar vortex out in LA. It rained the other day. That was pretty scary.
Rained. They got rain.
You know, when I lived out there, and you can't make this up, it was sprinkling so lightly. I mean, it was almost not raining at all. I didn't have to put on my windshield wipers for reference. And I saw a woman at the place where Matt and I used to work get out of her car with like the umbrella like pulling out as she was getting out, like it was the worst rain, this torrential downpour.
This is it. I
was like, your umbrella's going to be bone dry.
Yeah. She probably had just gotten her hair done or something like that.
Yeah.
LA craziness, just add water.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, people in LA cannot drive in the rain by any means.
Now, how long did you and Matt work together?
We worked together for, it was about a year, right, Matt?
Oh, yeah, about all told, I think a year, a little bit more maybe. But
excellent.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, and it was cool. Matt was actually he was my supervisor at the place where we worked.
Ooh,
and
right.
yeah. So and it was cool though, because it was kind of the first time in my life that I had a supervisor that also was a friend. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, someone you could get into conversations with. Sure.
Yeah.
I prefer to think of us as associates, except that I was very much in charge. I always made every other sentence. I made that completely clear.
Right.
You will call me sir.
I forget what it was. There was something that happened where I was like, just giving guff.
Guff.
I was not giving guff.
You're giving small.
And Matt drew a Fire Zach button on the on like the dry erase board.
I remember you posting about that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just my way of keeping the troops in line. The good-natured humor.
Crack the whip.
So the reason everybody listening that we have Matt on the show today is Mega Man is actually one of Matt's favorite series, and I'll actually let him speak to that really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually old enough to remember going to the local area Blockbuster to rent out Mega Man 3 and 4 way back in the day. And
now, Blockbuster kids, that was a place where you rented videos, and it's also in a Captain Marvel trailer.
Yes.
That's the only reference I think they have to.
Yes, kiddies. Way back in the day. But no, I always have thought of Mega Man as this kind of unique figure in video games in that he's not really associated directly with any of the major gaming companies. He's certainly not as iconic a Nintendo character as Mario or Samus. He's his own little universe. And he also, the games introduced all of these very interesting dynamics way back in the sort of genesis of gaming. You had the first time you could choose what level you were going to first. You had this very innovative rock, paper, scissors based power system that made the game easier or harder.
Well, and that was where I cannot speak today, you guys. The rock, paper, scissors mechanism wasn't that where they got the name Rockman from? I could be mistaken.
I believe that the Rockman was because originally in the Japanese version, all of the characters had names that were inspired by music. So Rockman, his sister is Roll,
and then Bass
and Treble were his antagonists that were released a few years later. His mysterious brother is called Blues, which is a reference to jazz music. It's also been mistranslated a whole bunch of times.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and it's funny too because they're all named after, musical movements or, rock and roll, stuff like that.
Right.
But then you have all the bad guys. They're like, we're just construction workers.
Right.
Like they kind of got like, we're not artistic at all.
Right.
And
Flash Man.
they're easily succumb to the dark side, I
Right.
guess.
The original concept, the robots that
Yeah.
were invented to help out humanity. You could, in the original one, it broke the robot masters down not by their personalities or powers or quirks, but it was which industry they were basically created to automate. So Gutsman was the construction industry, Cutman was the timber industry.
My favorite, he looked like he was made out of wood. Like Bender in that episode of Futurama. He converts back to 100% wood. Like, the most ridiculous robot.
Well, and it was cool to me too. Like even as a kid, I remember when Mega Man 2, I'll just start with saying this. Mega Man 2 was the first game that I really got introduced to the series with. And when it came out, I wasn't even born when it came out, I don't think. That Mega Man 2 was, 89? I think?
88 or 89, yeah.
So I would have my brother play it for me. My brother's 7 years older than I am. And I would make him sit down and play through the entirety of the game just because I liked the ending credit sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they always made it was like art. It was better looking. Well, I want to say graphics, but they did it artistically. There was like a little story that happened, and you'd see usually Wily's fortress on fire or something along those lines.
Yeah, something crazy going on in the background.
Which leads me, Dr. Wily. He's our main antagonist. Bad guy.
Yeah.
He's the Dr. Robotnik. He's the Bowser. Who is giving all of these guys with crazy names PhDs? You got Dr. like Victor Von Doom, like
Victor
stuff like that.
Von
Who's
Doom.
giving this guy? Like, what are we talking about here, guys? Dr. Wily, he won't try and turn on anybody. He won't be sinister.
Right.
Some kind of sinister graduate program, probably.
Right.
Yeah, he looks like
In
a crazy
upstate
Albert
New
Einstein.
York.
Well, because wasn't there in I don't want to jump too far ahead, but in one of the more recent games, didn't it say that Wily and Light used to be like best friends?
Oh, they were partners.
Yeah, partners or something. And then Light did something to anger Wily, and then he's like, I'm going to destroy the world.
Yeah, I'm sure it was Wily wanted to use the robots for more gain or something.
Yeah.
And Light said, no, I look like Santa.
They play a sequence about it in the new Mega Man game, but
We'll get there.
we will get there. We can't jump ahead to the future of the franchise yet, you guys. Come on now. Come on, quit trying to.
Started.
Come on.
But Matt, what was the very first time you played Mega Man? What was your first memory?
It had to be either Mega Man 3 or 4, and I think it was 4 because we tried a different game every week. Sometimes it was sports games, sometimes it was racing games. With Mega Man, it was the one game I got kind of obsessed with because it was so difficult. I was kind of used to these games where you could essentially coast through it playing, just trying different things. But with Mega Man, you had these wonderfully complicated, long levels with tons of dangers, a lot of really just top form traps and difficulties and innovative enemies, like interesting physics, engines. And then you get to the Robot Masters. And it was before you could just look up on the internet who was used to beat what.
Sure.
So you would have to go in.
You had to actually do some trial and error.
Have a ridiculously complicated and hard boss fight. And then you're basically back at square one where you're going from one level to the next.
Yeah.
Now, you bringing that up, it's leads me to one of my points that I was researching. Metroid had come out a year before in 1986. And it was, I think, one of the first kind of... there was Contra and games like that, but the run and gun side scroller. But Metroid had that almost puzzle element. You have to get different weapons to unlock different areas.
It had a verticality to it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't just the side scroller left to right. Do you think Mega Man had to be influenced by that? Because it also would go from left to right, vertical, and then on top of... It was cool. It took Zelda into it, whereas Zelda games never lock you out of a place. You can get into an area. You will never be trapped in a dungeon.
Sure.
But there are items that will make things easier or better for you.
Right.
And that, I think they're like, we're going to take the Metroid formula, not lock people out necessarily. They can go wherever they want, but they have the idea that they can do this easier if they really put some thought into it.
In a weird way, it almost was a precursor to these phenomenal free roam game systems because it introduced a lot of choice into the game. Because
Yeah.
Metroid was obviously the first non-linear game where you had to go back over the same terrain again twice, which seems like a very obvious conceit in terms of game design, but is actually counterintuitive.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
Especially if you have to keep making things more difficult as the game
Right.
progresses. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also allows for a lot of interesting narrative stuff. You know, the story ends where it begins. It gives you kind of a reflection, thinking, "Oh wow, this is where I started, and now I'm back here with all these missiles and guns and things."
Yeah. Look at me now.
But that's actually one game that I never actually played all the way through is Metroid.
The great games.
I mean, I think I beat Metroid Prime, but I think that's the only Metroid game I ever beat.
the 3D ones, they were interesting.
Yeah.
For GameCube, I remember.
That's a rabbit hole that we will go down another day.
Stay tuned, folks.
You guys are all over
But
the
there
map with the
was-
franchises. I mean, Futurama.
I know.
Metroid. which franchise are we on anymore?
We are sticking with Mega Man today, but who knows where it'll end up.
Now, when did they introduce? I remember there was the dog, your robot dog, which
Yep.
what was his name?
Why am I blanking on his name?
Rush. Yeah.
Rush.
Rush, yes. You could ride him like a jetpack.
Yep.
He was like a little convert. And then there's the bird, I believe. Wasn't there a bird robot?
There's a bird, I think, in some of the later games.
in the later ones.
Yeah, I think Beat is his name.
Beat,
And I think Rush shows up in Mega Man 3, and Beat might be Mega Man 5 or 6.
I think
That's
Rush is in
right.
2. I think Rush is in 2.
I swear he was. Yeah,
2
he-
actually has, sorry not to cut you off, but 2 actually
you're
has
good.
Please.
all the Rush powers. They're just not Rush. It's got platforms and jets
okay.
and things.
Oh.
But
See,
there's
this is
not.
why-
But they're not a dog that can transform into them and
Is
are
that a dog
therefore
head
less
attached? Just
awesome.
said platform.
This is why we bring Matt on the show for this episode, because we
We're lovers, not experts. We always
Right,
say it.
exactly.
But, we're fans, and we try to do our best.
I did want to point out too, for Mega Man 2, while we're still kind of in this past area, which for this franchise really most of it is in the past, but in Mega Man 2, apparently for the American release, that's when they added the normal mode, because wasn't there like normal and hard?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite commentaries on, the sort of Japanese gaming audience versus the American. So there was originally a feature in Mega Man 1 that allowed Mega Man to duck, which was completely eliminated. And it
Really?
sort of came back in the dash and slide elements. But it was said it just made the game way too easy because you could just duck and shoot at everything. And then in 2, they had to give like an easier mode, normal and hard, just so
For
that
American players.
basically so that they could slow it down for Americans. And even with all that, they were some of the most challenging games out there.
Oh yeah, it was
believe
super
it.
hard. I mean, I was like a little evil younger brother. Ross, if you're listening to this episode, I apologize. You guys, I used to, and given I was like 3, maybe 4,
Sure.
but I used to actually like pull his hair and like bite him and scratch him until he would play Mega Man 2 all the way through so I could see that stupid
man.
ending scene.
That sounds terrible. And he was like 10 or 11 at this time.
Yeah, no, he
You're
was-
lucky he didn't throw you out the window.
Oh no, he wasn't allowed to.
He wasn't- yeah, you see, I'm the younger brother too. We know how to push all the buttons.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry, Doug.
I've got 2 younger brothers, and I just have to say, yes, that's absolutely accurate.
That sounds about right.
We got all the perspectives in the room, or
like you
rather
said,
on the line.
All viewpoints represented.
Exactly. This series, while we're kind of on that topic, you mentioned a lot of it's in the past. It's been, like we mentioned before, it started in 1987, so that's a ridiculous amount. 32 years now.
Yeah.
It's older than I am. It's older than it's got over 50 games in the series. Now there are 11. From what I understand, there are 11 main game series like Mega Man 2, 3, etc. through up to the most recent one, which is 11, which just came out in October 2nd of last year, of 2018. That's kind of the main, I guess, if we're going to say storyline.
And those are the ones that they made. 11 was the recent one.
The most
That's
recent.
the one that
Yeah,
just came
from
out
what
on
I
the
understand.
Switch.
Yeah.
Yes, for the Switch.
So, and we'll definitely get more into that later
Yeah.
on in the episode too, for sure.
But yeah, with over 30 million copies in the series of the game sold. So that's basically almost 1 million copies of this game sell pretty much every year, if you think about it.
Yeah.
That's wild. And it's like, but I was looking at the list during my research. I had no idea that there are the Zero Hour and all these Advance and Legends and all these crazy iterations.
Well, and
I was kind of surprised as well. I mean, and I'm a total fan, but just the sheer number of games and really the number of franchises. I mean, you've got the X series, which is when they ported it over to the Super Nintendo.
Right.
The Mega Man Legends, the Zero series, Battle Network, which I'm not sure if I've ever actually tried one of those.
No, I've never played a Battle Network one. And Matt, you're we got phones going off. Phones in the studio.
That's my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm sorry, Brooklyn. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, world.
We can forgive this transgression. No, but Matt, you were saying that Mega Man X was one of your favorites, if I recall correctly, right?
Absolutely. I think back in the day, we actually did a playthrough on that one.
We did.
At your place. And yeah, I thought Mega Man X was one of the more interesting transitions from the NES to the SNES, because obviously you had Super Mario World, which introduced all sorts of lovely new characters and Yoshi. You had Super Metroid, which is obviously one of the best games ever put on the system. But Mega Man X took the series in kind of a weird direction in that it incorporated all this kind of Blade Runner mythos. It changed up the villain quite a bit in that it wasn't Dr. Wily. It was that Dr. Light and Dr. Wily, Mega Man, Proto Man, and everyone from that world were pretty much dead and buried. And you had this new race of Reploids, of which some of them were just going all Blade Runner replicant.
It's just and it's crazy too how like the jump in graphics for that game as well. I mean, going from the NES to the Super Nintendo, it just looked so much better. Graphics,
gameplay aesthetic, the completely optional and yet in a way completely necessary bunch of upgrades you can get all throughout the game.
Yeah.
It really encouraged you to go after those Easter eggs.
Well, and couldn't you actually get a Kamehameha or something like that?
You could. You had to.
Or not a Kamehameha. What is it?
Hadouken.
Hadouken, that was it.
You could.
Kamehameha. What?
Another great Capcom call out. Obviously, Street Fighter is its own thing.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, is it because it was Capcom, there are just so many versions of the game? I know Capcom, like Sega, is one of those infamous companies of, I'm going to sell myself out to the highest bidder when when the stocks start plummeting.
There were definitely a lot of versions of Mega Man that even the own creators were unhappy with. A lot of the Game Boy versions were these very sort of pared down and limited reimaginings of existing game content.
Well, and it was so funny to me too, because when I was looking up some stuff for Battle Network, it was so funny. It was in that time when the internet was kind of new, so everything was like this .exe, or it's like, it's Webman or whatever. I mean, I'm butchering all the names of everybody, but it was all very what's the word I'm looking for? Very obvious, I guess.
Web-centric.
It kind of dated. It falls into that same internet derangement syndrome.
Those dot hack games, hack, that just drove me nuts. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Before we get further up in the past of the franchise, I just got to say, I took some time and I watched, I was able to make it through most of it. I watched most of the first episode of the old Mega Man cartoon.
Okay.
Ooh, the old.
Yeah.
You guys,
it's rough.
It is unwatchable. It's bad.
It's Legend of Zelda animated bad. Where you're just, when they give Link a voice, you're just like, oof.
Well, and there was one where he's like, I forget what he said, but it was akin to, oh no, I'm being crushed. When it's like you see he's being crushed, or I'm alive when he's
we know.
Yeah.
I always got a creepy vibe between him and his sister too. And I don't know if we want to get, but it was a weird on the animated series because they were like, we're not really related. And you're like, stop saying that because I know what you're getting at.
That's a very weird thing to keep calling out.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing, writers. Stop talking about it.
And we're getting into Dexter territory there.
Right?
Well, and like, and even in Mega Man Legends, like there's a scene where Mega Man walks in on roll changing. And like,
come on.
You don't see it, but you just hear like, Mega Man, close the door, and his cheeks turn all red. And I'm like,
those programmers.
I know they're getting a little weird on us over there.
Man.
I'm trying.
It's just like in Lion King, you see the sex and all the Disney. See, it's our time for our favorite part of the show, guys.
Yeah,
where we get sued by Disney.
Yep, time to get into legal trouble with Disney.
Litigious confrontation. They had no
right,
outlet.
exactly. I mean, and I think even beyond that, I think they could just get away with a little bit more. You know what I mean? There was a little bit less.
You dig in, you wouldn't find it till 15, 20 years later.
Right, right.
Oh, look what we found in Mega Man 2.
Yeah, exactly.
I would definitely agree that the Mega Man animated series is not its finest iteration.
No.
Because I always used to joke that movies ported into video games made awful content. It turns out that video games ported into TV shows make even worse content.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So. Well, did you hear the Resident Evil's getting there's a new Netflix series going to that, so hopefully they do something
right. I did hear about that.
That'll be, it's a bingeable series, so that's a whole other thing. But yeah, with Mega Man, it was kind of a weird, you're like, do not let the show influence anything about the game. I'm like, this is not a good representation. At least with the Mario shows, you would have, it's Mario and he's jumping in coins.
Well,
but with Mega Man,
what are you going to show? You know,
how many times can he shoot at robots? I guess
there is a new Mega Man animated series right now. Mega Man Fully Charged.
Fully Charged.
It is equally as unwatchable.
That's like a Charlie's Angels Fully Charged.
From everything that I can find, it first aired in August of 2018. And I was able to watch like the first episode.
Like a first and last sort of like, let's see what this.
It was so bad. It was the voice acting.
Was it even worse?
In a sense, it was
nowadays.
Worse. It was worse just in 3D, so the awfulness was clearer.
Exactly.
Oh my!
It was awful in HD. Well, and the problem with it was that they were trying to take Mega Man, who, and I would like to discuss this with you guys too. I think that Mega Man is a little bit of an adult character, even if he is a boy or a teenager. The content that he's dealing with, I mean, he's not fighting candy canes, although he might be in one game.
Well, it's the idea that has to be almost reprogrammed. He's like, I'll take on the responsibility of this. I know this is not my function. I have to start fighting, but it gives me, I have the ability to adapt, so I can. It makes me an effective weapon.
That he is a weapon though. And this show, this one on Cartoon Network, they make it out to be this like it's very much catered to maybe the 7-year-old. You know what I mean? Like the audience that.
Oh no.
And I don't get me wrong. I loved Mega Man as a 7-year-old. But it's like
but not because he acted like 4 7-year-olds.
Right, exactly.
I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because they were badasses, but not because they appealed to children and don't use their weapons anymore. Like that's not what I'm looking at.
Right.
Yeah. But with Mega Man 2, it kind of leading off of that, you do see that a lot in anime and a lot of Japanese culture, like the story of a child, like Sailor Moon. It's a lot of kids doing saving the world often.
Even
and it's
Pokemon.
A lot of responsibility befalling upon children.
Oh yeah. And they have to get, it's very much part of the whole, Campbell hero's journey is the surrender of childhood in the service of a higher ideal. We could go on and on about that stuff. But I always did think that the X series had a more coherent worldview in that they do talk a lot about, there's anti-robot outrage from humans. There's Reploids is a Reploid more valuable than a human? And that was Sigma's whole manifesto, because
it's like some Matrix stuff.
Yeah,
because he was basically the Che Guevara of Reploids, but with much less hair and
still had the little hat.
It wasn't Mega Man X. It was another Mega Man for the Super Nintendo. I want to say Mega Man 7. It was like another nice graphic Mega Man. Why am I blanking on the name of it?
Like the 8 or 9 series with bass and treble.
I think so. It was the one where in like the first level, it has that music like the da 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 da. You know what I'm talking about?
I think that's all of them.
That sounds like all of them.
Somebody.
Well, now, was this? You're saying it's for SNES? Was it right at the end of the?
I think it was.
Because didn't they there was a 3D attempt for the N64?
It wasn't a 3D one.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, if anybody's listening, can somebody take my rendition of that song and dub it over whatever game I'm trying to think of? Because I can't remember the name of it.
Yes, edit it for us, fans.
It was, I wish I could remember which one it was, but that one was really nice too. It had that nice polish to it, but I remember that the bosses in that one didn't feel as strong. They didn't stick out to me quite as much.
It was more about the level. And speaking on the music, the music has been phenomenal. There's still songs like I can still remember I have it in my head. Like I'll never forget. Same with like the Final Fantasy series and those stuff, but it's those Nintendo They just
Yeah.
had amazing composers.
It's almost like they have to come up with these insanely earwormy songs just because they had so
Yeah.
little to work with in terms of tone and pitch. I mean, when you just have to reduce your music to chiptune, it's necessity is the mother of invention when it comes to creating iconic and memorable themes. And also, taking a 20-second thing that can be repeated for 40 minutes while you try to beat a level over and over again.
Not
drive the whole family crazy.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Well, and
or at least not the person playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and speaking of necessity being the mother of invention, that's why Mega Man is blue. I don't know if you knew that, Dave. And I'm Matt. I'm not sure if I'm speaking like this is like some huge revelation. I think this
Blow
is
our minds.
somewhat common knowledge, but Mega Man was blue originally because the NES had more blues in its color palette than any other color.
I'm not sure I knew that, but that makes total sense.
They were able to make him look a little bit more robust there, and they actually were the first game to make their character out of two sprites. So his face is a separate sprite.
That's right, because Mario was its own one sprite, and they're like, we can't add that much detail.
That's why when he's hurt or when he's jumping, you see a different expression.
Yeah, he's like opens his mouth or something.
Flexibility.
But they figured giving him the blue palette would actually open it up when he got other powers as well. They could switch over to those colors for that and, still have that blue be the base, the thing that you see the most. I thought that was kind of cool.
But those are always two-tone. It's always white and red or green and orange.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward.
One of the funniest, quirky things I found looking around, I think it was on 101 Facts, it was that one of the original names for Mega Man was Rock Rainbow Superman, and there were a lot of different variations on Rainbow because he kept
it to Rockman.
Exactly, because he kept changing colors to use the different weapons, and
that would make sense.
I feel like Japanese, they're like, we must make the most literal. If it is a title or translation, it's like, this man changes color, he's obviously a Rock Rainbow Man. You're like, what? No, whoa, what?
And apparently the reason that they didn't use it wasn't that Mega Man just sounds better and Rockman is a cooler title, but that there was a Rainbow Man on TV at the time. Google the image for just this live action superhero show starring Rainbow Man, which
interesting. That does not sound like a show I'd really want to watch. What's his superpower?
Like 80s era Japanese television?
I think just hoping unrestrained fabulosity was my power. And if not, then it should have been.
Why? Now, here's my question. Why is our podcast not called Unrestrained Fabulosity?
Man, that's such a better name. I think we're going to have to.
Copyright.
I mean, it's still the same Unrestrained Fabulosity. It's the same, what
cadence?
Am I saying? No, UF. It's same initials. That's the word I'm looking for.
UF, FU, all the same.
I'm not sure that those are actually both words.
No, I don't think so. We'll make them words. They're words now. Back to Mega Man.
Yes,
I do love one of my favorite games now, and I believe they were created in that Super Nintendo era. The Marvel versus Capcom games. They were the arcade fighters.
Yes.
And you would get Mega Man in there. You'd get Bass. You'd get Proto Man.
Yeah.
And I would always make a team of them because they had the they had the Mega Busters and stuff. You could just blow everybody away from a distance and no one else could, you'd have Captain America throwing his shield at you and you're like, bye-bye.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. See ya. But yeah, they were always the best in those. And then we'd play them at the movie theater and an arcade.
And the other one that I wanted to make sure we touched on here, because it's so easy to lose track of time when we're talking about this stuff, but Mega Man Legends 1 and 2 was a pretty, I don't want to say underrated, but undersold game.
Which one was that for?
So Mega Man Legends 1 and 2 were for PlayStation 1.
Okay,
and,
yes.
That's the one that Mega Man 64 was a port of Mega Man Legends.
Yep. That's
So,
the one I'm thinking of.
And man, I love those games. I have a copy of both of them out there.
I saw them in a Nintendo Power. That's what I never played them. And I was like, oh, 3D Mega Man, cool. And I never played it.
Yeah.
I always thought Tron Boone was a really awesome successor villain in that sort of different universe.
And it was like the whole, that whole Bond family was like, I don't know. It was. They gave you a family to fight instead of.
It was like just Belmonts, or it was Castlevania-esque.
Yeah.
It's like they were it was Hatfields and McCoys, but with robots, giant.
Was it
mecha suits.
Tron Boone or Tron Bon? I thought it was Tron Bon. I might be wrong.
It might very well be Bon.
Because I think it's Bonne.
Now, are they human, or are these also Reploids, or did that continue the humans also becoming enemy? Because I'm like, that's a rich environment to go into, but I hope they didn't scrap that.
They look like they're partial robots from what I can see. Yeah.
A newer enemy.
Cyborg, whatever the operative term for that
that's
is.
the scariest of all.
And it was super hard. Those games were really, really tough. And I remember the second game especially, Mega Man Legends 2, which a buddy of mine lent me his copy, and that is still my copy. So, Jake, if you ever want your game back, it's still yours. I haven't forgotten.
Too bad.
But I mean, those games they're tough to find. They were so rare. I mean, if you buy Mega Man Legends 2 right now with a case, it's $300.
I remember my brother had to go to a special store, I think, because he's collected, I believe, most of them, the cassettes, and from NES and SNES, and he's got an unbelievable gaming room. But so I know they are sought after. Yeah, well, and the thing with the Legends series, to me anyway, is the music wasn't quite as good, right? It wasn't it wasn't your classic Mega Man music, but it was the first Mega Man game that I felt anyway to really flex the muscle of upgrades. And you were supposed to, so there were these like digging sites, right? And you would go and you would dig underground, and it was like a treasure hunt, because there might be one piece of the texture on the wall that's a little bit off. And if you search in that corner of the wall, you might find a buster part. And only if you have that buster part with 3 or 4 other specific ones do you get this crazy homing missile, whatever. Like they played off of that for a long time. So it was really a sandbox, truly almost open world.
It was
level.
Yeah, it was bordering on open world.
Kind of like how Mario 64, you go into an area and you can play in the sandbox.
I wish I could have another game to compare it to.
I always thought they were kind of similar to Citizen Kabuto, the Giants game. Have you guys ever tried that?
Oh, Giant Citizen Kabuto.
I never played that.
I remember watching my brother play that a little bit.
Yeah, I never played those.
Okay. But
dating myself here, but I will say that was another awesome game. And it was. They basically showed you where to go, but the map was 10 times bigger than your stated mission. So you could go all over the place.
And in Legends, they would barricade you off from where you shouldn't go. There might be someone blocking the door, a police officer, but it was, I don't know, there was just something to that exploration aspect and the upgrade aspect that I just, to this day, I'll go back and I'll still play it. The graphics look terrible now, but
you see, then that's kind of bringing a little now to the future of the franchise part of the show. They've brought Mega Man into Super Smash Brothers, which I'm a huge fan of. In the last couple, so he's been in for a few years.
Not before time. That was kind of my bête noire. Was where's Mega Man? You've got Mr. Game and Watch, and
you've got Pac-Man in
Fire Emblem, which I'm sure isn't really a game.
But I'm wondering if the reason they
show me that Fire Emblem's a game.
I will not see this.
I will die on this hill.
I pick weird hills to die on. It's kind of
you have to. You have to. People remember those hills.
What you put on the tombstone.
What I think might have happened though is because they were planning on releasing a Mega Man Legends 3 for the Game Boy, or no, the 3DS or the DS or something like that.
Okay.
And it got canceled because there wasn't enough. They didn't think it was going to sell. So I'm wondering if that sort of legal hang up was what stopped him from being in Smash.
Maybe. And I'm wondering, that could very well be. And I'm wondering too, if they're trying to hopefully reboot the franchise. I would like to see more of a Devil May Cry paced Mega Man.
Oh yeah.
You have in a 3D environment.
Yeah.
And then also really have some, bring in some side scroll aspects to it too. Make it like kind of a, maybe dual, or I don't know.
While we're on the kind of shared present and future of the franchise, Mega Man 11, I bought that, I played it, and it didn't feel the same.
Is it side scroller?
It's side scroller. They basically took the old Mega Man formula, like Mega Man 2 essentially, and they made the graphics beautiful. I mean, it looks incredible. And they gave you this double gear system where you can power up your Buster arm and you can slow time. But I don't know. It felt a little bit too gimmicky to me.
Did you guys ever play Beautiful Joe?
A little bit.
Oh yeah, the Wii.
It's like a comic book for the Wii.
Or was it GameCube?
It might have been GameCube.
Oh no, it was
GameCube.
GameCube.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
I was
two
thinking
came
for a
out.
second of No More Heroes, but I do remember Beautiful Joe and his
It
magnificently
was really
large
cool,
head.
but very gimmicky. Where
What's
it's
that,
like you
where's that
get
guy
these
in Smash
abilities.
Brothers? He'd be great.
Yeah, Beautiful Joe.
Joe.
That'd be a good one. But yeah, you could slow it.
probably
It was
pop
very heavy. Or like you can slow down time, but you're like, oh no, once I learn this ability, this is all I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and just more bullets are coming at you, more bad guys. You're like, I just have to keep. The whole game becomes bullet time.
In the new Mega Man, and maybe I'll admit this, I'm not the best at video games, but it was hard. It was a very difficult game. Mega Man 11 was.
That was I actually played it over the Christmas break. I was back in New York.
Oh, nice.
Which is unnecessary origin filler, but there you go.
There it is.
Everybody's got to have
East
their
to
origin
West
story.
So I actually really enjoyed Mega Man 11, but kind of for the exact same reasons that you didn't like it. And I totally agree with you in that there were new gimmicky pieces to it. But I kind of like the fact that they didn't just go back to the original Mega Man, just scroll, jump, slide, charge. Because over the course of the first 6 games, you couldn't slide until the 3rd one, and you couldn't charge your Buster until the 4th one. So I feel like there's been this sort of constant progress of what you can and can't do in the games. And some of them didn't work. That's totally accurate. But I thought that it was a nice return to form. I feel like as awesome as Legends was and as interesting as some of the other forays they've done, and there have been a lot of them, Mega Man Racer, Mega Man Soccer. He's been
right.
He's
the
been
ones we
Mario
did not ask for. Are you listening, Capcom? We did not ask you for these.
No.
Mega Man Volleyball.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what one of my concerns is. It's one of those franchises that I think straddles that line of very dangerously becoming almost kind of like those top-down shooters of R-Type, Galaga, where it becomes so hectic with just so much being fired at you. You're like, how else do we improve upon this? Like without just adding more flash firing at Mega Man, we have to take it out of side scrolling, And
I will say that Mega Man 11 for me, it had some awesome level design.
Okay.
Like I wasn't crazy about the double gear system, and maybe that's just because I'm like an old man and I don't like change. But the level design was incredible. I mean, every stage felt so distinct, and you had to learn all these new enemy patterns and stage patterns. It was all the level design. I can't speak highly enough about that. That was really cool to me, I thought.
I think that Mega Man occupies this kind of interesting position in the current crop of latest versions of classic characters, where he's very much meant to be in the retro gaming arena.
Sure.
He's a way for people to get their enjoyment out of the sort of games that they really don't make anymore for large-scale systems, like 2D side scrollers. I wouldn't mind seeing him in a lot of sort of different reinterpretations of that. Like actually have a back to form old style Chrono Trigger style Mega Man RPG.
That'd be great.
That'd
be awesome.
Just for giggles. Cool. And let that be kind of an outlet for people to design the most amazing 2D levels you've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what else? I mean, while we're thinking of, future of the franchise, I would love to see, and I know there's been like remake after remake, but if they already have the characters built for Mega Man 11, I would love to see like Mega Man 2 remade with that engine.
Yeah, just reboot. Quick redo.
Yeah, it'd be quick and easy.
You could also have. Yeah.
It'd be amazing. Actually, one of my favorite things about Mega Man 2, dipping slightly into the past again, is that it was a game that was designed by the staff at Capcom completely on their own time. They would they would all work all day on the games that they had been assigned by their higher ups, but then on their lunch breaks after work, it was a total passion project. And it was just because
you can see it.
People were so excited on that. And I think it was finished in a couple of months. And that's always been one of my favorite things about Mega Man as a franchise, is that it was this thing that really resonated with the team that designed it. And then it kind of went all over the place and got out to all these ridiculous areas that it probably never
Mega Man 2
went
was
to.
the first one that really took off, it seemed. Not that the first one didn't do well, but Mega Man 2 is, in my mind anyway, the one that sticks out as, wow, that's where they started to really get it right.
They got their stride.
You know?
And it's good. It is, like you said, it's one of those franchises that it's steady as a rock. You can go back to it no matter what, and it will be there, and it'll put a smile on your face.
Something that we've talked about before as far as future of the franchise goes, and I feel like we kind of always land here, but man, I would love to see an open world sandbox Mega Man game.
Make it multiplayer. You could all be your own unique abilities. You could
design
if you
your
kill
own
another
robot.
guy, you get his abilities.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so
be
cool.
a really interesting experience. I think that really
bounty hunting and stuff. Yeah.
I think that it kind of taps into this really crowd-funded element that Mega Man's had going back to the original 8-bit games, where every time they released one, they would hold these massive contests. I don't know if you've seen the ads back in Nintendo Power and the old gaming mags, but people would send in their designs for these Robot Masters, and it went from a few thousand entries. I wish I had some kind of charming anecdote about how I, invented one and cried my cynical little eyes out when I didn't get in. But
well, I'm like, even thinking about like kind of that open world thing, I could almost see it as like a long-term PUBG where it's like, where you can respawn, but you respawn with nothing. And you don't know where on the
you're
map
just
is.
Mega Man.
Yeah, you're just Mega Man.
You get but it's not other players necessarily. All other players are computer players. You're fighting too. And you can team up or not.
Yeah, team up.
That'd be dope.
Oh man, I really want that.
That's a very interesting idea. That would never have occurred to me, but I'd totally love to see that happen. Just for the just for the impetus of designing yourself as a little Mega Man power robot person.
Right. Yeah. Well, and what do we think this Mega Man movie is going to be, too?
Well, like I said earlier, it's been in production since 2015. As recently as 2018, they said that they have 2 writers and a director now tied on to it.
Okay.
So they're all working together. Hopefully we'll see one. I heard that the Mario movie is in production. That will be animated. So good. If they do a Mega Man movie, I hope it's animated, not like this Alita Battle Angel. I don't know if you've seen it.
If it was animated,
just about to make a joke about how I assumed Alita Battle Angel was the Mega Man movie after they had gotten done with the whole thing.
Man, well, Alita Battle Angel, for those of you who don't know, it's coming. It's been pushed back. It's this live action, looks like an anime.
Yeah.
It's based, I don't know if it's based off of other, a graphic novel or something.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting pushed back, and it looks like just a CGI mess.
I think it'd be really cool if they did something almost akin to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that'd be
where
cool.
In instances where Mega Man is firing his Buster arm, we hear an 8-bit sound effect, and it cuts to a couple of freeze frames of him in an 8-bit pose, and then back to the full rendered 3D.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That'd be so cool.
Enjoy the animated style.
I think that that's a really interesting way to take it. And also, if you want to go full on into the Spider-Verse, you could do a sort of mashup of the Mega Man series, the Legends, the X.
Oh, yeah.
All these.
Bring them all in.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
I don't know
I
if
built
you
all
could
these different
start
versions
with
of you,
that.
Mega Man.
Yeah, that might have to be.
It doesn't have to be different dimensions. It's just Dr. Light making different. It's like the V1, Mark
That's
1,
true,
Mark
yeah.
2, Mark
Just
3.
keep
Like
pushing
Iron Man.
out the Mega Man upgrades.
Because isn't that what Proto Man is? A better version.
It's like Mega Man's brother, something like that. Yeah.
Or something.
Well, and it's, I don't know. To me, I would be okay with seeing it as a live action thing as well, but they would have to do it really. Yeah,
it would have to be.
I would love to see the Edgar Wright Mega Man movie.
Yes.
Very. It would be a hyper live action, almost Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Even though that's a terrible movie.
I didn't see that one.
The Wachowskis. Oh no.
No good. No bueno.
I would give it to Edgar Wright before the Wachowski brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yes.
Really, I'll give anything to Edgar Wright.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Or we'll let Fincher direct Mega Man and let it be like really
Fincher.
dark.
Just got the edgy, dark.
Right.
Quentin Tarantino.
Mega Man takes other robots' powers by doing horrible things.
Like drinking their blood.
Yeah. No, we can. Well, we can't have Tarantino direct it. We'll have racial slurs flying all over the place in Mega Man.
That'd be really bad.
They'll have to come up with like a new racial slur for robot. Like.
And on that note, folks.
So pitch your ideas from most racist robot name
to Quentin Tarantino. P.O. Box.
Care of Franchise Unpacked.
Care of Franchise Unpacked.
We joke about this now, but I guarantee you in like 20 years, we'll look back and be like, I can't believe how bigoted I was saying racist things about robots.
The robots are going to be chasing us all down the street.
Right.
We're gonna
they'll hear this. We'll be on trial.
Oh, yeah. Once they become sentient, we are done.
But Matt, we really want to thank you so much for being a great first guest. It was awesome getting to talk to you. I'm sure we're going to do another Mega Man episode later on, and we'd love to have you back.
This is a lot of fun, you guys. Sure. Thanks so much.
All right, and everyone that's listening, thank you for tuning in, and we will be Getchin'? We'll be getchin' you guys next time.
Getcha. Remember to rate,
Getcha.
review, subscribe. Yep, getcha.
Yeah. Actually,
Rate,
guys,
review,
that helps us out so much.
especially on iTunes. Share it with your friends. Spread the word. We've already gotten so many people sending in messages on our, DMing us, Instagram. It's really kind of blown up. And it's all thanks to you guys. So keep sharing, keep subscribing and rating and reviewing, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and we actually have a couple of, I guess we'll call it surprises coming up here. Hopefully a little bit after episode 10, somewhere in that range airs.
Ooh.
So just hang tight with us, guys. We got some stuff
Cliffhanger.
coming up that we're thinking of.
But yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
See you later.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Make sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to find out what franchises we'll be unpacking next. And feel free to drop us a line with any questions, comments, or future episodes at franchiseunpacked@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so we can keep these episodes coming your way. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.